Words. Words matter. Using just the right word in just the right circumstance can make all the difference in the world. Let me give you an example. This is a true story, by the way. Nick was learning how to skydive. Now, why anyone would jump out of a perfectly good airplane if they didn't have to is beyond me. But it was something he wanted to do. So he's going through the training, he was getting prepared, and he was preparing for his first solo jump. The jump master had packed his chute and was getting ready to put him on the plane. But Nick was a little bit worried. So he asked the jump master, "What happens when I pull the ripcord if my chute doesn't open?" The jump master said, "Don't worry about it. I packed the chute myself. This never happens. But if it should, you have an auxiliary chute, so just pull the ripcord for it. You'll be fine." Well, Nick still wasn't entirely satisfied, so he said, "Well, what happens if my auxiliary chute doesn't open?" Well, the jump master was getting a little annoyed at that point, and he looked at him and said, "I packed the chute myself. This never happens, not even once." And then he got a little sarcastic, and he said, "But if it does, there is one final thing you can do. As you're falling towards the ground, as it's rushing up towards you, look up into the sky and yell as loud as you can, 'Buddha, save me,' and you'll be fine." Well, Nick wasn't entirely satisfied with that either. He was still kind of nervous, but he got on the plane. The plane ascended to the jump heights. He went to the door. He took a deep breath, and he jumped out. He started to fall. He reached the deployment height, and he pulled his ripcord. Nothing happened. He was kind of nervous, but he remembered his training. And so he pulled the auxiliary cord as well. But that chute didn't open either. He was falling, the ground was rushing up, and he was really, really terrified. He doesn't know why, but in that instant, he looked up and he shouted, "Buddha, save me." And in that one moment, a giant golden hand reached down out of the clouds and caught him. He was sitting on this giant palm, looking around. And he doesn't know why this happened, but it just came out. He cried out, "Jesus Christ!" And the hand dropped him. Words matter. Words matter because they are the way we understand and explain the world around us. We use words in prayer to communicate to a higher source. We use words to create our experiences and our reality through spiritual mind treatment and affirmative prayer. And today I want to talk to you about creating reality. Now, we all want a good life. And at many points in our life, we want to know and do and be something better. This teaching is not about worshiping a distant God, hoping that you'll get a miracle when you need one. No, we are products of the divine Spirit, and that Spirit, call it God, the one mind, divine intelligence, the law, or whatever, is right here and right now, all of the time. It's waiting to be expressed in the way that is you. Now, Ernest Holmes said, "There is a power in the universe for good, and you can use it." The operative phrase here is, you can use it. It doesn't do things for you. It does things with you. It co-creates, as we like to say. Now, in order for this to happen, there is a process that you have to go through. You have to both do and be certain things. And this process has 5 steps which I'd like to share with you. These are purpose.
Sorry, I wasn't able to share that for you.
Be quiet, Siri. Personalization, process, perseverance, and production. Well, fortunately, she didn't have anything to add to that. Now, these are the P's that you have to mind. There's a saying that the most important day of your life is when you discover your purpose. And then the things, the activities, the accomplishments of your life flow from that purpose. Now, how do you find your purpose? Ask yourself, what is it that only you can do? What do you want to do? What expresses your special talents, perspectives, and way of seeing the world? That is your purpose. In other religions, there's a lot of talk about God's will for your life. But I want to share a secret with you. God's will for your life is your will for your life. Spirit's job is to create life. Your job is to decide what to do with that life. And sometimes it can be very hard doing something you've never done before. We decide that we want to do something. Maybe we want to start a new career, a new relationship, a family, go back to school, lose weight, plant a garden, write a book, or create a work of art. Maybe you feel called to teach, like our own Heather here does. She has devoted her life to opening the minds of young people to greater possibilities. You might even decide that you want to start your own community center and you want to be the next Reverend Lane. I could see Keith doing that. Now, a purpose has to be expressed in a particular way that says, this is what my unique self does. What you do is an expression of who you are. Now, the British philosopher Colin Wilson said, the universe is biased towards a full expression of life. The universe makes your life possible. It provides the canvas. You have to want to paint. And just do it, and the universe will support you. It can be big or it can be small. What is big for one person is small for another. The only thing that matters is that it be yours. Your idea, your creation, whatever that is. The only thing that matters is that it be a little bit bigger, a little bit braver, a little bit better version of you. Discover what you want to do, what only you can do, then decide that you're going to do it. You have to take action. Action tells the universe that you believe in your purpose. Now, if the barista behind the counter at Starbucks writes her phone number on your venti salted caramel frappuccino with toffee nut syrup and extra whipped cream, you still have to call her. Remember this, Keith. One thing that will stand in your way is that familiar voice inside your head that says you can't and you shouldn't. The only way to quiet it is to take inspired action. The universe loves and supports action that push you towards your goal. That's when things start happening. People, circumstances, support of all kinds start to appear when you take action. It's not really magic, but sometimes it will almost seem like it is. And that is when the voices quiet down. Now, when you get past your own voice, there will be other voices. People will say, you can't and you shouldn't. These are critics, otherwise known as friends and relatives. Some of them you may even call mom and dad. They love you. They want to protect you from the prospects of embarrassment or failure, and most of all, they don't want you to change. Again, taking action will quiet those voices as well. Now, if your purpose is big enough and bold enough and public enough, your critics may even be paid to tell you what not to do. Now, that's particularly true if you're creating something tangible like a book or a work of art or anything that puts you in the public eye. Now, it can be tough. Let me give you an example. This is what one of the country's most influential literary critics had to say to in one of the highest circulation newspapers in the country about an inspiring author who had just published a new novel. He said that such stuff should be considered humor is more than a pity. But what could be said of a man deliberately imposing upon an unoffending public a piece of careless hack work in which a very few good things are dropped amidst a mass of rubbish? A year from now, no one will remember this book. And that wasn't even the worst review he got. There were many others. Now, clearly, this writer's career had to be over. So it's probably a good thing that he wrote under a pen name, and that name was Mark Twain. And the book that no one remembers today is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Today, Mark Twain is called other things, one of them being the foundation of American literature. And The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, that piece of hack work, well, they had to invent a special phrase to describe how bad it was, and that is the great American novel. Critics, no matter how well paid, aren't always right. Remember that. So what I would suggest to you is that, yes, the critics will tell you all the things you can't do. Your job is to keep doing them if you believe in yourself. And there's another thing about manifesting something. When the thing you want shows up, it may not look exactly as you expected it to. This is where personalization comes in. Whatever you want to do has to be yours. So don't get hung up on thinking that it has to look like someone else did. It doesn't. When I was younger, I wanted to write books. I wanted to express myself and produce something that would be a tangible manifestation of my own ideas. Now, many of people have these thoughts, but very few ever carry forth with them, because any kind of writing is hard work, as some of you have written books and you know this. And I had already written hundreds of articles, so I knew that it was going to be something of a stretch. But writing is like any other task you want to manifest. You must imagine it in your mind and proceed to personify it in your life. Then you turn the process over to spirit to lead you in the right direction. And the universe went to work for me, but it didn't turn out the way that I expected. For me, spirit and some networking led me to a series of clients who wanted me to write books for them. So I became what is called in the trade a ghostwriter. If you've ever read a book by a famous celebrity or a politician, or most likely every athlete who has ever written a book, you know our work, because that is what we do. We do books for people who can or won't do it themselves. And one was followed by another. For me, I wrote a book on the nature of creativity for an inventor. I did a book on spirituality for a rabbi. I wrote a memoir for a famed architect. And I did another for a former actress who had turned into a toy maker. And, I continued to do that. But someone said to me, you didn't do what you wanted to do. You didn't write your own books. And I believed that for a while. But then I realized that I was doing exactly what I had asked for. It was my words and my ideas, even if it wasn't always my name on the cover. The universe had opened the door that was right for me. Now, maybe you're not sure about what you want to do, but know that even if you are unsure, there is guidance to be had. The great hip-hop artist and founder of the Wu-Tang Clan, the RZA, put it this way: confusion is a gift from God. Those times when you feel most desperate for a solution, sit, wait. The information will become clear. The confusion is there to guide you. Seek detachment and become the producer of your own life. Another essential factor in getting what you want is perseverance. You have to keep at it until you reach your goal. Now, in 2018, a 15-year-old girl named Greta Thunberg rode her bicycle to the Swedish Parliament in Stockholm, where she lived. Carrying a sign, a hand-painted sign, she began a protest demanding that the leaders of Sweden do something about climate change. She had in mind staging a school strike for climate justice, and she hoped that someone would join her in her protest. But day after day, absolutely nobody did. After all, she was just a 15-year-old high school student, and at 4'11", she was easy to ignore. Occasionally, people would come by and tell her that she needed to stop and go back to school. One older man told her, "You should stop because nobody cares about your protest or cares about climate change." It was a lonely effort, but she didn't give up. She continued to show up in protests. She started to speak to passersby and reporters, even though speaking to total strangers was really difficult for her because she was autistic. Slowly, people began to notice, and soon she had about 100 people joining her in protest. But that wasn't all. Across Europe, others were hearing about her protest. Carried by news stories, carried by word of mouth, hundreds of similar protests sprang up in cities across the continent. All of them were modeled after Greta's own protest. Now, she attended conferences on climate change. She spoke up. She argued from the perspective of a young person who sees their future threatened by the actions or inactions of others. A year later, she led the biggest climate protest in history. More than 6 million people joined her. Think about that. Nobody cared, but she made millions care. And so on November 5th, 2021, she took her message about the dangers of climate change to the General Assembly of the United Nations. Today, her name is synonymous with climate change activism. When someone calls you Greta, they mean that you're a climate activist and you care about the environment. Greta followed all the steps she needed to reach her goal. She had purpose to raise awareness of climate change. She personified her purpose to do things her way through public protest, and she developed a process for building support. And most of all, she had perseverance. Now, perseverance is a sign that you believe in yourself and what you're doing, particularly when people tell you you can't do something, that it's impossible. But Greta was an unlikely leader for an international movement, but she succeeded because she knew deeply one central fact. As she said, nobody is too small to make a difference. And the final step can be found in the heart of all the others, and that's production. You have to work, you have to turn thoughts and words into actions, and thinking about something isn't enough. Wishing doesn't work. You have to take action, no matter how small that may be. Once you do, the universe will give you everything that you need to succeed. You can be confident in that. And here's another truth from the RZA. Through great input, you get great output. So it's all about the input. Another reason you follow your purpose is that creativity is essential to happiness, to being fully human. It's also a requirement for our relationship with spirit. Author and New Thought historian Mitch Horowitz put it this way: we are driven to produce and establish if one takes seriously the scriptural principle that the Creator fashioned each individual in his own image, then it stands to reason that our imperative to create follows from that act. You have to produce, you have to take action. And I would ask you to do one thing. Think about something that you want to accomplish, whether it's big or small, and take one step towards it, just one. And know that the more inspired action you take, the closer you will get to your goal. Now, I began this talk about finding your purpose, about expressing yourself in the way that only you can, and doing the things that only you can do. Now, I believe this is not just something that's good to do. I believe that it's essential to being human, to being a happy person. If you want to be happy, you have to express the person that is really you. Now, I hope you believe this as well. Now, after all these P's I've talked about that you have to mind, you might wonder, what is the Q? Well, the Q is a question, and it is simply this: what will you now do with this one beautiful, magnificent life that you have been given? Thank you.